Conservatives are right about marriage, but it's the liberals and red pill pundits that lead the narrative on relationships and marriage. Jordan Peterson made a critique of conservatives a couple of times, saying that conservatives do not have a comprehensive vision and narrative for young people.
Has the right lost the culture war?
We'll see. We'll see. The right lacks vision. They play a rearguard game. They don't have a compelling story to tell young people.
I think that is true and could also be the reason they don't delve into the trenches on this topic of marriage as much as red pill and liberal personalities do. I watched a response to Ben Shapiro by Adam Sosnick from Valuetainment several months ago. Ben was reacting to Myron Gains from Fashion Fit on men and marriage. The response that Adam made to Ben's reaction was, in my opinion, pathetic. I was upset after watching the response, but not at Adam, but rather at Ben. At that time, for several months prior, I have been increasingly incensed by conservatives' inarticulate responses to criticisms of marriage, or at least their lack of engagement with the criticisms of marriage. There is an idea that red pill personalities express, which is that everyone is influenced by feminism, or rather almost everyone is or has feminism in them, including conservatives, even though one may state that they are not feminist, are not socio-politically involved or active with feminism, or are opposed to certain claims of feminism. There are aspects of gender dynamics that are influenced by feminism that conservatives hold, and society at large. Take Tommy Lauren, for example, an ostensible conservative woman and her all-manner trash debacle. I must make the caveat here that although I believe this idea or sentiment to be true, that everyone or almost everyone holds gynocentric, feministic ideas or presuppositions in some selected areas or portions of their thinking, but not in totality, I would not use the same examples that red pill talking heads use to demonstrate what they mean by this idea. If you disagree with the idea, then I would imagine that you would also disagree with Andrew Clavin and Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire when they talk about an important piece of advice on marriage, which is to destroy feminism in your marriage, not as in make your marriage a political symbol or statement for anti-feminism, but rather whatever ideas, principles, or presuppositions from feminism that you are likely to hold that either of you may hold or think to be true, you must destroy it amongst yourself, which is an admission that the couple or people in general are influenced by feminism to some degree. From that perspective, I would agree with the idea that almost everyone holds some gynocentric feminist views to some extent. The reason I mention this is because I think this idea could be in part the reason there is a lack of further engagement in the trenches, if you will, from conservatives and marriage thumpers on criticisms of marriage that is influenced or impacted by some part of them that holds gynocentric feminist views or presuppositions. There is an aspect to gynocentrism that refuses and discourages blatant confrontation for accountability and punishes anyone who dares openly name the sins and double standards of women publicly and explicitly. It turns such an individual into a villain and makes them a sinner. This phenomena we see all the time in relationships and funny parody videos online that show or talk about what happens when the woman is wrong in an argument and the man ends up apologizing. You might think, yeah sure, that's benign and only localized in certain incidences. I would argue you are wrong on both accounts. This phenomena, socially enforced, is I think the reason why many conservatives, men and women, will not talk about the other side of the problem of relationships and marriage like the red pill content creators do, which is give a name to the sins and double standards for women and saying them aloud and publicly. It's easy to talk about men's sins and call men all sorts of names with confidence and pride in public and on the pulpit. But when it's time to give a name to the sins of the other half of the problem, everyone suddenly calls for silence, peace, and solutions, and shuts down anyone who dares name the sins of women and deems them part of the problem, leaving the sins of women unnamed. But this is only one aspect to gynocentrism. And there are many that you can name. Think about all the things that men are afraid to be explicit or honest about to their partners, or in general about women, and you will have begun the list. Just a few months ago, some guy was dragged on the internet for having had stated boundaries for his partner, which were very reasonable. That man experienced online and on the internet what a lot of men, if not every man, experiences societally. If what I say is true, then what kind of behaviors would married men and marriage advocates be practicing behind closed doors? Could the image be accurately painted as men walking on eggshells in their own homes, afraid to upset their wives, men constantly supplicating to their wives, seeking to win brownie points, hoping they will eventually add up to them getting laid? Happy wife, happy life, they say, behaviors and practices that their wives don't practice towards them. Pathetic. They are already compromised in their relationships and masculine stature, so how deep in the trenches can they go to battle anti-marriage apologists or those who assuage people from marriage with various anecdotes, examples, statistics and rhetoric, without being hypocrites, saying things that their wives will not like, therefore losing brownie points or subjecting their conscience to cognitive dissonance? I'm not talking about Ben, if you're wondering. I'm not saying he's all these things that I've talked about above. I'm not calling him out or making assumption. He just never responded to the two pathetic reactions from Adam and Myron to his reaction of Myron. People who advocate for marriage are the least of its defenders. Conservatives talk the talk about how politics is cultural or politics is downstream from culture, yet when it comes to marriage, romantic relationships and sex, not in a political context, they are very weak, lethargic, inarticulate and unengaging in their defenses and elucidation of conservative values in these areas. Some just barely float over liberal views on these topics, slightly dusted with conservative powdered sugar. Making headline statements about marriage is not defending it. It took a provocateur, Polly Davis, to get conservatives to semi-delve into the trenches on marriage and the arguments that are offered by red pill content creators. At my most pessimistic moments, I cynically and secretly wonder if it was her defense of Steven Crowder that triggered them to dip their toes in the trenches. If you think I'm being unreasonable or unhinged in my criticism of conservatives on this topic, then the question that I'd like us to think about is, in light of conservatives' claim to defend and advocate for marriage, why and how does it come to be that we hear and learn about crucial issues concerning marriage, gender dynamics in relationships from those who disparage and have a go at marriage, and not from its advocates and promoters? Everything of value that someone or anyone who would try to persuade you of will have its bare minimum of problems and challenges. But there are kinds of problems that when weighed with the potential benefits of the thing pursued, the probability of failure and the negative consequences of failure are higher than the probability of success. Those are the kinds of problems that one is morally and ethically obliged to disclose to you if they are attempting to persuade or sell you on a thing. On this point, conservatives and marriage thumpers have failed and are silent. How can you try sell me a script and fail to tell me that half its pages are missing? How can you try sell me a house and fail to tell me the ceiling's caving in? How can you set me off on a journey to a land of milk and honey and fail to tell me the route weather has changed, it's dangerous, and many who have taken the route never made it? How can you show me only one half of the coin? On the macro level, the conservatives are right, and the marriage thumpers are right. The script they offer you is the best story you could ever read. The house they want to sell you would be a great house to live in. The land of milk and honey is a real place. The only problem is that they only show you one half of the coin and not the other half. The other half that so many have stumbled on, the half that could cause one to seriously reconsider their options elsewhere, the half that requires serious and fervent engagement, explanation and navigation. But as I've stated above, utilitarian headline statements are not how to communicate an extensive and comprehensive vision and narrative to young people about marriage or conservative values for that matter. And that's all conservatives can offer. All the red pill content creators have to do at this point is delve into the trenches and dismantle piece by piece conservatives' headline aphorisms and paint their own narrative and vision, which is what they have done all along. On the point of probability of failure with regards to marriage, Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh's response to that is spot on, and I agree with them, but I won't talk about that here. On my next blog, I will talk about the reaction video that Adam made to Ben's video and offer commentary.